The topic of electric cars can evoke strong emotions. Some believe that electric cars will only have a small impact on greenhouse gas emissions, while others believe that the impact is already large. What do facts tell us? Welcome to Key Energy Facts about the journey to our future energy system. I'm your host, Tushar. I have over 25 years of experience in the energy field, which includes technology development, commercialization, and evaluation. In this episode, we will review both the current and maximum possible impact of electric cars on greenhouse gas emissions. We will first review the data on the global sales and the share of electric cars. I would like to note that the cars category includes cars of all sizes, sport utility vehicles, and light trucks. The sales of electric cars have increased markedly in recent years, driven by technology advances and subsidies from the global governments. The subsidies have been substantial. For example, the direct purchase incentives for electric cars in the year 2022 alone were $40 billion. The subsidies have played a major role in the sales of electric cars. The sales have increased from a trivial number in 2010 to roughly 14 million in 2023. The total number of electric cars on the road are currently about 40 million. The global car fleet, which mainly consists of conventional cars that use fossil fuels, is currently over 1.2 billion. This means that the current share of electric cars in the global car fleet is roughly 3%. What is the current impact of electric cars on oil and electricity consumption? This data is available from the International Energy Agency. Electric cars reduced the use of global oil by 0.5 million barrels per day in 2022. For reference, the total global oil use is 100 million barrels per day, of which over 25 million barrels per day are used by cars. What about the impact on electricity use? The global electric car fleet consumed 70 terawatt hours of electricity in 2022. What does this mean in terms of greenhouse gas reduction? In 2022, the fleet of electric cars reduced their emissions by 68 million tons because of the reduced oil use. On the other hand, the fleet increased the emissions by 33 million tons because of the additional use of electricity. So on a net basis, the global fleet of electric cars reduced the greenhouse gas emissions by 35 million tons in 2022. The global emissions were roughly 54 billion tons in 2022. So the global fleet of electric cars decreased the greenhouse gas emissions by less than 0.1% that year. About 14 million electric cars were sold in 2023. We can include the contribution from the additional 14 million cars in the analysis to estimate the impact for the year 2023. Doing so reveals that the global electric cars reduced greenhouse gases by 0.1% for the year 2023. How much is 0.1% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? We can achieve the same level of reduction by replacing 0.5% of the global coal power with low carbon power. What is the maximum possible impact from electric cars? To answer this question, we need to consider the contribution of the car sector to global greenhouse gas emissions. Based on data from the International Energy Agency, the cars sector contributes to roughly 7% of the global emissions. This informs us that the use of electric cars at a maximum can reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions by 7%. This maximum is only possible if the conventional cars are replaced by electric cars with zero carbon emissions. But currently, electric cars are not zero carbon vehicles. They are associated with significant greenhouse gas emissions. Why? Because fossil fuels supply majority of the energy required for producing batteries, car parts, and the electricity required for operating the electric vehicles. Consequently, the greenhouse gas emissions from electric cars depend on the carbon intensity of the electrical grid in each region. Carbon intensity of the grid is the amount of greenhouse gases emitted per unit of electricity produced. The life cycle data reported by the International Energy Agency is instructive. Electric cars can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by over 70% in regions with low carbon intensity. But they reduce emissions by less than 10% in regions with a high carbon intensity. What about regions with a global average carbon intensity? Electric cars emit 50% fewer greenhouse gas emissions compared to conventional cars in such regions. Earlier, we discussed that the electric cars at a maximum will be able to reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions by 7%. This maximum reduction corresponds to the case where electric cars have zero carbon emissions. But that is not the case today because most countries do not use low carbon electricity. Some countries such as Canada and France do, but many do not. Countries such as China and India use high carbon electricity. Others such as the United States and Germany are in the middle. Electric cars emit roughly 50% fewer greenhouse gases compared to conventional cars when considering the global average carbon intensity. This means that if we could magically switch the entire global car fleet to electric cars today, it can at a maximum reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 3.5%. Some final remarks. The current fleet of electric cars has a low impact on greenhouse gas emissions. The impact is expected to grow as the share of electric cars increase and the global grids achieve low carbon intensity. There are other options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the car sector. For example, a massive expansion of mass transit and use of hybrid cars in the intermediate term. I'll discuss more about these options in a later episode.